All right, everyone, so let's get started with C.B.T. and U. That is the name of my presentation today. So C.B.T., for those of you who don't know, is just the abbreviative way to say cognitive behavior therapy. And it's probably my favorite theoretical construct. I'm pretty passionate about cognitive behavior therapy, so I hope I can spark your interest in it as well. So I'm just kind of going to go over a little bit of history. What is CBT? And then at the end, I'll weave in how does the spiritual and sacred integrate into this theoretical construct. So the person to the right that you see, that's Aaron Beck. He's still alive today. He's 99 years old, actually. But he is the founder of CBT. So CBT is a psychological treatment which focuses on how our conscious and unconscious thoughts affect our emotions and influence our actions. So CBT is used to treat really just a vast range of issues like depression, anxiety, alcohol and drug problems, eating problems, marital issues, and many more. CBT is more than just this idea of positive thinking, but really realistic thinking. And what CBT does is it helps us trace our automatic thoughts that we have sometimes that are negative or just faulty thinking, and really take those head on. So moving on here, when I talk about changing our thoughts and really intercepting these automatic beliefs that we have, you might start thinking, well, is this theoretical construct just all about being happy? And really that's not what it's about. CBT is so much more than that. It's really taking a look at, contrary to some other theories that really look at our past and what has happened to us that influences who we are, CBT focuses on our beliefs about the actual event, our emotions about the actual event, and how we allow that to influence our behaviors. Excuse me. As I said, Aaron Beck was the primary founder back in the 60s. And back then you had cognitive therapy and then you had behavioral therapy, and the two did not intermix. It was like sacrilegious if you would intermingle the two. However, Aaron was really the pioneer in starting CBT and joining these ideas of cognitive and behavior and seeing that there is a link between them. When you think of cognitive, you think of your traditional modality of like Freudian therapy. You can picture like the id, the ego, the superego, or you can think of Adler, who really furthered his work. Or you can go to the opposite side and you think of behavior, and you think of someone like Pavlov, with his experiment about how he made the dogs drool whenever they would hear a sound, like classical conditioning or operant conditioning, which was Watson with their negative and positive reinforcement. But Aaron saw the link between these two and realized it's just the potential to do this type of therapy. So CBT is not just the idea of positive thinking, but really realistic thinking. So again, when you look at the picture about the glasses with water, is it half full or is it half empty? And that seems like such a trite example, but really that encompasses a lot of addressing this thinking. I like to define terms. So cognitive behavior therapy, very simple, 3 words, but let's just kind of take a look at them. So the study of cognition. Cognition is really examining the way that you think. And behavior is examining the things that you do. I put that picture in there because it's a peculiar behavior that person is, doing. They seem to be meditating on some area, but dressed in a unicorn. I have no idea why, but it would be interesting to have a conversation with them. But let's just define the terms, and I think that's a good place to start. So cognitive, examining what you think; behavior, examining what you do. Moving on here, CBT focuses on the issues of the present day and how they're affecting our life right now. Like I had mentioned earlier, rather than the traditional way of psychotherapy, looking at the past and how that influences you and how that shaped you. This more takes a look at the present day and the things that are affecting your life now. One thing I really like about CBT is that it's measurable. You can actually get empirical evidence for your client's progress, which is pretty spectacular, if you ask me. The CBT is usually short term, though. There's about 8 to 10 sessions normally, and the real aim is just to, there's a variety of different issues you can use CBT on, but really just to get to know what's going on in your head and to give you the tools to overcome harmful and negative attitudes. So I'd like to play a video for you, and it's just kind of going to go over what CBT is really briefly. So let me go ahead and play that. So that's just a quick video with an overview of what CBT is, really what we've been talking about. Now, the next slide I'm going to show you here is a good summary of what CBT aims to tackle. So in the center you have an activating event. From that activating event, thoughts are generated, and those thoughts in turn give us emotions. And those emotions will then influence our behavior. So I'll give you just a quick example. Say I'm in the grocery store and I'm just looking at what I'm going to get, what kind of cereal I'm going to pick up, and someone bumps into me. Well, the thoughts are going to maybe pop into my head of wow, that was really rude. And in turn, I might feel frustrated with that person. And my behavior might just be, I might be frustrated with my wife or my kids who are there, and they had nothing to do with that, but it's just, there was an activating event which triggered all of these things. So I'd like to do a group exercise. Now, obviously, we're not together, so you're going to kind of have to just play along with me here. So I have close your eyes and imagine, but I've got pictures up, so you don't necessarily have to close your eyes. But let's just take a few examples, and I just kind of want to see what you guys think, some inner dialogue you have, and what you feel. So, okay, so here's the first scenario. So imagine your alarm goes off. And I'm so guilty of this. Your alarm goes off, and you hit snooze for 5 minutes. And then you wake up, and you look at the clock, and it's 7:45. And you remember you're supposed to be at work at 8 o'clock. Now, what are you feeling in that moment? For some of you, it might be different things. For some of you, you might be thinking, oh man, I don't have time to shower. I'm going to be late. Some of you might be thinking, oh, I should have just gotten up at the first time. Or some of you might think, oh man, I'm such a failure, and I just should have gotten up when the first alarm went off. So there was an activating event. Thoughts came into your head of, oh man, I'm going to be late. Emotions, whatever, they vary from different person to person, and that in turn influences our behavior. For me, I'll just take myself as an example. If that was me and there's 15 minutes till, I'm going to think, of course, I'm going to be late. My emotions is I don't want to look bad in front of my boss, and my behavior is going to be running out the door and maybe speeding, and I'm going to get there, and another activating event could be, oh man, I didn't shower, and so I'm going to think that everyone's going to think that I'm gross, and my emotions will be like insecurity, and so my behavior will just be like avoiding people. So just this cycle, right, that we have. So that was the first scenario. Let's go through another one, okay? So you're invited to go to a social event. Let's just call it a wedding. And the only person that you know is a friend of the groom. And everyone else is foreign to you. What's some internal dialogue that you might be having? Well, putting myself in this situation, if I'm going to a wedding and the only person I know is a friend of the groom, I might be thinking, well, I hope that my friend doesn't have any other friends at this wedding. Obviously he does. Because if they skedaddle, then I'm going to be left all alone and I don't know anyone, and it's just going to be awkward. So these are some of the thoughts that can come into your head. Emotions that maybe flood you would, insecurities or just awkwardness, or maybe not, but that's certainly what it would be for me. And so my behavior would probably just be to stay at my table and eat my food and mind my own business, I guess. So that's the second scenario. And now let's do one last one here. Let's say you call your friend or a loved one and it goes straight to voicemail. So yeah, I have a picture of a digital answering machine. I don't think anyone actually uses those, but for the sake of the illustration, just humor me. So, what are some things you're thinking? You call your loved one, your friend, or your friends or whatever, and it goes straight to voicemail. They don't answer. What are you thinking? You might be thinking, well, I mean, context is everything, right? But let's just say you called them and then you call them again, and this isn't the first time. You might be thinking, oh man, they're ignoring me. Some emotions you might be having, you might get upset. Why are they ignoring me? Why did they send me straight to voicemail? Why isn't their cell phone on? So some behavior you can have, I mean, there's people reacting in so many different ways, but you could ignore them, or you could call them out and say, what the heck, why didn't you pick up the phone? Or you could brush it off and say, oh, it's not a big deal, it doesn't really matter. So everyone kind of reacts a little bit differently. Now, those are just some fun examples of real life situations and things that can happen. So the main idea that I want to get across is this right here, that there is an activating event. It can be many different things. From those events, we have thoughts, these automatic thoughts that just pop up. And they in turn create emotions which influence our behavior and so on and so forth. And this diagram can really be applied to so many of the different issues that CBT is used to treat. Now, a CBT is used just kind of like what we talked about. It really is thought tracking. So taking that same scenario, those same scenarios, but really having like a journal and being able to track throughout your day whenever you have these thoughts that come into your mind, to really be conscious of them. CBT looks for any underlying assumptions that you might have. One of them could be, let's take the phone call for example. You call your friend, you call your loved one, and they don't pick up. An underlying assumption you might have is, well, maybe I'm just not important enough to have them answer the phone. And the last one, one of the fun things about CBT is a tool that's used is it's called thought stopping, and basically what that is whether inside your brain or audibly to just say stop. When you have these faulty beliefs and assumptions or irrational thoughts that come into your brain, really just stopping them in their tracks. So it's just kind of a tool that is used. So, and let's move on here. One other tool, and really a core belief that is foundational in CBT, is something called mindfulness. Now, some of you may have heard about mindfulness before. Yeah. Let me just play the video, and I will show you what mindfulness is. Okay, so that is just a quick overview on mindfulness and just really just what a powerful tool it can be. When we are mindful and conscious of this, it allows us to then use those tools that CBT has to stop some of these automatic thoughts that come our way and really challenge them. So let's say we'll take that driving example. Someone cuts us off, and like the um, what is it? Hedgehog said. He said, "I'm pissed." Okay, so that's a thought that comes your way, and in that moment, choosing what emotions and behaviors will come after that. So um, now, we're talking about thoughts and behaviors and emotions, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, why is emotion so important? Well, we see the world through the lens of our emotion. You might be a rational person, but we all have emotional reasoning, and it's how companies advertise to us, and that's how we're so quick to make judgments without having all the information in front of us. That's why two people can see the same thing and yet make two very different judgment calls. Or, yeah. So, let me just show you an advertisement here that plays on our emotional reasoning and tries to get us to buy a certain product. So, just take a look here. Oh, sorry. I need to. Uh-oh. Sorry, guys, I'm messing up here. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. Okay. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a sucker for uh, videos of soldiers coming home and seeing their family. It's just super fun to watch. Um, but yeah, this was a commercial for Duracell. And what was Duracell trying to do? They're trying to pull on your heartstrings and really have you use your emotional reasoning to tell you if these Duracell batteries are important enough for a soldier to put in a teddy bear and send to his little girl, trusting that they'll last long enough for until he comes home, then they should be good enough for you to do whatever task. For me, it would be like to keep my guitar from shutting off mid performance or whatever. So emotions are important because they really drive how we see the world. And companies obviously know that we could sit here all night and just watch commercials like this, and that would be a blast. But I'd probably fail this presentation. So let's keep let's keep moving on here. So we've talked a lot about CBT. We've talked a lot about the theory itself, and um, but let's talk about how does the sacred and the spiritual incorporate into this psychological setting. Before I jump into that, I do want to recommend, if you are interested at all in cognitive behavior therapy, I cannot recommend enough the book Mind Over Mood, specifically the second edition. It was published, I think it was in 2016, this updated version, and it's just really good. I did it for my book review, and Dr. Greenberg and Dr. Podensky just do such a good job of really laying out what CBT is, and not just that, giving different examples on how to use it in different settings. This Mind Over Mood is a self-help book, but she just came out, Dr. Podensky came out with the Clinician's Guide, which I just picked up. I haven't had a chance to really dive into it yet, but from looking at reviews and other clinicians who have used this book, they have just said it's so good. It's just like a great reference guide. So if you're interested in CBT, I would check out those resources. I'll have in our sheet the references in APA format for all the resources that I've used for this presentation. But one of the things I wanted to focus on, because I've talked about how CBT is unique in that you can you can track kind of your patient's progress and how they're doing. And so this is an excerpt from chapter 13, which is dealing with your depression, and it's a formal behavior activation sheet, activity scheduling sheet, which separates it into 4 different categories, from pleasurable activities, activities that need to be accomplished, what might be some things that hinder you from doing that. So what can I do to begin to approach these things I've been avoiding? And the last one is activities that fit with my values. So that 4th thing was actually something that was added here in the second edition. And the reason for that, Dr. Podensky says, you're going to get you're going to get much more mood boost from activities if you're doing the things that are meaningful to you. So the reason they added this update was because they found that it's important to talk about values and what's important to you, because if you can incorporate your values with an activity or a task that needs to be accomplished, then it really supercharges your mood and your ability to complete that task. And this is applicable to so many other things, not just specifically depression. So let's take, for example, if there's an activity that you need to accomplish, let's say it's your turn to make dinner tonight. So if one of your values is, let's say, fitness, then you can supercharge that activity by incorporating cooking something that helps you maintain that value of fitness while still accomplishing the goal of cooking, which you might like or might not. Let's say a value you have is friends and family. Well, incorporating that into cooking, you could maybe have a son, daughter, or your spouse help you out with that, or invite a friend, and or there's those pre-done meals that you can order, like HelloFresh, and you can just have fun together doing that if that's an important value to you. And where the spiritual or sacred comes in. So let's say for me, I would say, well, one of my values is Christianity. That's important for me. So how do I incorporate Christianity with cooking? Well, you could approach that by is saying, well, I want to take care of my body, so I'm going to make something that's, maybe healthy. Or you could approach that by saying, I want to serve my family and really just, I know that, that pleases them and it'll please the Lord if I do that. So you do that. Or let's take a different activity. Let's say under the second column there, an activity you want to accomplish is exercise. So that's a goal and activity that you have, and let's take spirituality as a value. Well, taking it from a Christian perspective, you could incorporate your exercise with a beautiful hike and really admire the creation that God has made. really the beauty of nature. I know some of you really enjoy the water, and so that's kind of like your place, or enjoy a good run, or whatever. Reflect on the beauty of nature. Or you could, just say, I want to take care of my body. I want to take care of my health because I understand that my body is a temple of the living God. And so really supercharging these activities in order to accomplish them. So that's just kind of one of the ways that CBT incorporates the spiritual or the sacred into the psychological setting. Now, another thing that CBT really pushes is mindfulness, and we had chatted a little bit about that, and mindfulness and meditation. So I've got 4 different pictures here. We've got to the far right, we've got a guy praying. We've got another person who is just out in beautiful water. Another person who is in the typical meditation pose, and another person who is just kind of gazing off to the distance. So integrating the spiritual and the sacred. Well, if mindfulness is a core belief of CBT, and really being conscious of the things that are going on around us, meditation is definitely a way that spirituality or the sacred can be integrated into the setting. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in a prayer or in like a meditating place or in a beautiful scenery. It can be in your very office, just allowing yourself to be in the moment and to just, no matter what's coming your way, to be able to realize what events are happening, realize what thoughts are coming your way, what emotions are coming, and what behaviors will come from that. So I did a Venn diagram that I did in my paper, but I wanted to share it with you guys, and it just compares CBT and Christianity. So CBT is difficult in the way that it's more about the here and now, and it doesn't really go into the past. I mean, you can, but if you're strictly looking at cognitive behavior therapy, it doesn't allow a whole lot of space for spiritual integration. So I did my best to kind of try. Those were the two main things, and I know values, not really a sacred or spiritual thing, but it certainly can be. But meditation can. Meditation is. But here's kind of things that are different and things that are similar. So on CBT we have, like I had been talking about, it's not about what happened to us, but really what we think about what happened to us, how we allow our thoughts to influence our emotions and in turn influence our behaviors. CBT addresses the thought process, why we have so many negative thoughts so often. CBT is very measurable, and it is short term, between 8 to 10 sessions generally. And I have that picture that I've been showing on the left side there. Now, Christianity is really all about our sin and what Jesus has done for us. And it is gospel focused on our heart rather than anything superficial. It's really not measurable. And I put in parentheses sort of, because I mean, you can take the fruit of the Spirit and use that as a form of measurement, but it's you don't really measure your spiritual progress. Generally, you can look back at the years gone by and see the progress in your spiritual walk, I hope, but it's really, like I said in the last point, they're a lifelong process and journey, this sanctification process that's never made perfect until we're until we're in heaven. So now there are some similarities, which I gotta confess was pretty difficult to find. So they both address the behavior of the individual. While Christianity isn't explicit about, it's more than just making behavior modifications to be a more quote unquote righteous person. But they do both address behaviors. And I put that they are both in about thought stopping, really these negative thoughts. I reference Philippians chapter 4 verse 8, and I've got that scripture later on in the presentation. And the last one is they use motivation to help progression. Now, again, while Christianity isn't explicitly saying, hey, you know, be a better person and love the Lord more so that you can progress in your walk with Christ. It's you know, I like to tell people that because I love my wife, I will do certain things that I otherwise wouldn't want to do in the first place. And so because I love the Lord, I do certain things because I just love him. And so that's my motivation. But CBT as well uses motivation to help progress. This motivation to overcome certain obstacles, whether it's anxiety or depression or eating disorders, etc., marital issues. Um, so, is there anything else? Well, not really. CBT is great, but when it comes to integrating spiritual and sacred stuff, it's very difficult. I've never had a session with anyone and let alone use CBT, but just from reading it, and it doesn't seem to really lend itself to discussing too much of spirituality and sacred. It can certainly come up, and it's not shutting it down by any means, but it's just not at the forefront there. Like I said, they're usually 8 to 10 session therapies. You take 45 minutes in 8 to 10 sessions. It's not a lot of time, but basically it helps us break up these things into manageable and measurable chunks. Like I said, it's not built into the theoretical construct at all. It's by its very nature pragmatic in its execution. And so I put this little cartoon to the right. Says, dude, I have so many ideas that would revolutionize life on the earth and bring awesomeness to mankind. And then the person to the right, the pragmatist, says, well, how about you just take out the garbage and do the dishes for once? So I feel like that's more CBT. Okay, let's find the problem, let's make a plan, and let's get it done. So I've got 2 quotes for you. One is just a quote, and the other one's a scripture reference. So I really like this quote. It says, feelings are much like waves. We can't stop them from coming, but we can choose which ones to surf. And I think that really encompasses the belief that CBT teaches. There's a lot of waves. There's a lot of things that come our way that we just can't stop. Life is life, but we can certainly choose which ones that we ride, that we surf. And, the Bible attests to this as well. In Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, it says, finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. So really addressing this issue of just faulty thinking and wrong thinking. I'm coming close to the end of the presentation, so I did want to give you guys kind of just some tools about how you might go about defeating these automatic thoughts, or really contesting these things that might come to your mind that are just not good. So the example I'm going to use here is, let's say you have a client and they're afraid of crossing the road because they might get run over. That's a legitimate belief. It's a legitimate fear. And maybe they might just be petrified. So I'll give you an example of how CBT would be used within this context. So the first thing you could do is really try to disrupt their irrational belief. You could research how many people have been run over a year from crossing the road. Oftentimes you can look at the worst case scenario and say, well, worst case scenario, this happens, but that might not be a good one in this one, because worst case scenario, you cross the road and you die. So it's probably not a good one. But okay, let's do the next one, is doing cognitive homework. So you can start small. You cross small roads, or even start even smaller. Let's just cross a driveway. That's one of the cool things about CBT, is being able to do that stuff. So you could change your language and change it by saying, this is a busy road. I'm going to make sure to be careful when I cross so that nothing happens to me. So you change that cannot into I can do that now. So you could use a little humor and just try and laugh about it. Not everyone takes the humor the same. Not everyone likes to laugh, but that's okay. You could laugh about it and say, "Come on, this is a little. This is you gotta admit it's a little funny. We're crossing a driveway right now, and so if your client is into that, then that might be a way to help with defeating those automatic thoughts. Rational emotive imagery. You get the client to feel what it is to cross a road. You can role play that even in your office. Just close your eyes and let's just picture this together. So again, that goes with role play, just trying it out. So just a few more here. You can do a shame attacking exercise. So just tell them, don't be afraid, don't be ashamed of your fears. There's lots of people who have fears, and you might have the opportunity to share a fear that you have, and really just encourage them to don't beat themselves up for this. Like, there's a lot of people that are scared of a lot of things. I'm petrified of spiders. My wife wants me to do some work in our crawl space, and I hate spiders. I'm petrified of them, and that's my irrational fear. I know they're tiny. I know they really can't do anything, but it's just, so to be able to empathize and sympathize with your client. Next one is the use of motivation. You could ask them, well, if you cross these roads, what are the benefits? I mean, the immediate benefit is you'll get to the other side, but to overcome this fear is really great. You can go on walks. You can, just use your feet to commute, and it's just a good thing to get over. Desensitization, getting someone to go with you. This is like exposure therapy, and you do it and repeat it until it basically becomes second nature to you. So skill training, training how to cross a road, when to cross a road, and where to cross a road. And the last one is assertiveness training. That's the difference between and there is a difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness. Asking what you want rather than bullying. So these are just some things I wanted to add in here. This is by no means a comprehensive study on CBT, but if this has piqued your interest, I certainly encourage you to take a deeper look. Really look at that. I would highly recommend that book, Mind Over Mood. So to kind of finish off here, I wanted to, there's so much I would like to go over with you guys, but I think for the sake of time, I'm kind of running close here. Right, one thing I did want to address is when we address all these automatic thoughts, the idea is not to necessarily dismiss their beliefs, but help them change them to better ones. Like if you told me, "Oh, Danny, that's irrational to be afraid of spiders," it's very dismissive because it's a very real fear to me. But to work on changing my beliefs and how I think about these things in a better way. I should really practice CBT in myself for that. CBT really just helps us find the root of these thoughts. And really this idea of we can't change the things that have happened to us or the way that we are. Maybe you're dealing with someone who has anxiety or you yourself has anxiety. But we can change how we act in these situations. So I want to read you guys just one last verse here and to finish up and close off and kind of tie it all together. Revelation chapter 21:5 says, "And he who is seated on the throne said, 'Behold, I am making all things new.'" Amen to that. "Also, he said, 'Write this down, for those words are trustworthy and true.'" I love that, guys. I love that. With that last part where he says, "I'm making all things new, and these are trustworthy and true," I know that this side of heaven, as I said, we won't be perfected, and our minds will still never be perfected. But I think that for many people, old ways of thinking can be made new through the use of CBT. As Christians, we understand that while it may not be perfect this side of heaven, it is possible to overcome a lot of these obstacles and hurdles that we live through the use of psychotherapy methods like CBT. So I think that spiritual and sacred do integrate with this, because I think it is just from the Judeo-Christian perspective, it is um, a thing that God wants for us to have a healthy mind, to not have all these negative thoughts just permeate our brain all the time. So, yeah, that's kind of all I've got. So I want to thank you guys for just sticking through. I know it's a long presentation, but if you guys have questions on CBT, there's a lot more that I could share. But yeah, if you're really interested, I highly recommend that book. Oh no, what is this? Me searching for important psychological issues to write about, and then I happened to go to memes. I couldn't finish my presentation without getting a few of these in here. When you're so depressed and you realize you have no reason to be, it makes you feel worse. Leonardo DiCaprio's face. I'll let you guys read this one for all of you psychology majors. That last one is me. What I actually do, just slaving away with a Red Bull and head down, finishing up the project. And last one here. What should I do with my bachelor's degree in psychology? So, anyways, guys, just a few last little things. Hope that made you laugh. But that's it. My presentation on CBT. If you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. But for now, that's all I've got for you guys.